You're listening to CFRN, the Christian Financial Radio Network.
Good afternoon, traders, and welcome back to the CFRN E-Mini Futures Cast. This is the daily broadcast of Indeterminate Length, where we discuss all things E-Mini, along with some really big ideas on the finer points of trading gold, bonds, crude, sugar, the euro. Joining us today, Mr. Michael Borg. From our trading desk in Chicago, Mr. Burton Schlichter. Now, to get things started, let's go to our host and founder in Studio A, overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. Here's Dwayne.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Today is Monday, 9th day of June, 2025. Thanks so much for joining us, whoever you are, wherever you are. We're just glad to have you right here, or right now. Michael is winding up his vacation today, and he will be back in the saddle tomorrow morning when the market opens in the live training room. I have humbly tried to fill his shoes Friday and today, but if you're on the free trial, don't worry. The 2 days that I was there as a placeholder, you'll still get your 5 consecutive trading days, no credit card required, starting tomorrow morning. If you have not yet taken your 1-week free trial, go here to mytradingiq.com. At the top of the page, you'll find a big purple button. You can't miss it. Click it, fill out the form. When Michael gets home tonight, he'll get your indicators up and indicating, and then your trial will officially start tomorrow morning. But that's only 4 days in the week, so the coming weekend won't count against you. You'll get one more day next week. Now, when you take the free trial, you're not just getting access to the live training room. We treat you just like you are a member, a passport holder, with access to everything for 5 consecutive trading days, so that at the end of the trial, you can make a well-informed, intelligent decision as to whether or not trading is right for you. Now, the live training room ends each day at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We take a 30-minute break, and then we come back for this broadcast, the noon broadcast, which is open to the public. That's everybody everywhere on planet Earth with an internet-connected device. There's 2 different ways to join this afternoon broadcast live. The best way, you only have to do it once. Go to mytradingiq.com, but this time scroll down the page to where it says noon broadcast. Click that link, fill out that 30-second registration form, and you're done. What will happen going forward is every trading day you'll get an email about an hour before this broadcast starts. In the email there will be a link. So at 12 noon Eastern, all you have to do is click the link in the email and it will automatically log you into our platform. The benefit of doing it that way is you have access to the question box, so you can ask questions and participate in the discussion. Of course, there'll be days you're out of the office, away from your desktop. This time of year, maybe you're on vacation like Michael. So you can't join live. uh, unless you use our YouTube channel. Now, of course, there's going to be days when you're out of the office, away from the desktop, still want to join live. And there'll be days when you're busy, can't join live, but want to get caught up later. You can do both of those via our YouTube channel that I just mentioned, youtube.com/CFRN. That's the Christian Financial Radio Network since 2005. But you don't have to remember all that. Just youtube.com/CFRN. Now, not only do we broadcast live every trading day on our YouTube channel, as we're doing right now, simulcasting, but we also archive each and every daily broadcast. Currently, there are over 2,800 daily episodes archived for your educational and viewing pleasure. And if you're new to our little corner of the world, it's a great way to get to know who we really are. Thanks to the power of YouTube, you can scroll back 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, even more. Now, obviously, you're not going to watch all of those, nor do you need to, but it's a great resource to have at your fingertips, and it kind of lets you know we've been around a minute or 2 or 3. youtube.com/CFRN. This is our schedule for each afternoon broadcast, but like Friday, today Michael won't be joining us as he's wrapping up his vacation. But all the stuff we normally do, other than that part, we're going to do. In fact, we'll dive in right now with our daily devotional. The topic we're on, and this is day 5 of 6, so we'll be wrapping this up tomorrow. More than money. You said, what? There's more than money? A lot more. Our scripture today is Mark 10, verses 17 through 31. And I'll be sharing with you from the Message translation. As he went out into the street, a good man came running up, greeted him with great reverence, and asked, "Good teacher, what must I do to get eternal life?" Jesus said, "Why are you calling me good? No one is good, only God. You know the commandments. Don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat. Honor your father and mother." He said, "Teacher, I have, from my youth, kept them all." Jesus looked him hard in the eye and loved him. He said, "There's one thing left. Go sell whatever you own and give it to the poor. All your wealth will then be heavenly wealth. And come follow me." Now, let me just interject. Jesus isn't saying money's bad, okay? He was really testing this young man's heart. The man's face clouded over. This was the last thing he expected to hear. And he walked off with a heavy heart. He was holding on tight to a lot of things and not about to let go. Looking at his disciples, Jesus said, "Do you have any idea how difficult it is for people who have it all to enter God's kingdom?" The disciples couldn't believe what they were hearing, but Jesus kept on. You can't imagine how difficult. I'd say it's easier for a camel to go through a needle's eye than for the rich to get into God's kingdom. Now let me interject again. Back in the day, cities, like Jerusalem, they had walls around them. Okay? And you've probably seen this trick before, where a camel on some TV show or movie would actually bow down and move forward. You see, beside the main gates, which were locked when it got dark, there was a little side gate that if a traveler showed up late at night and the guards deemed it was okay to let him in, the man's camel, that's how they traveled, would kneel down and scoot through what was called back then the eye of the needle. So, I know you've probably heard it preached differently, but after much study and research, that's my take. So, that's just my opinion. Let's get back to God's Word. What God said got their attention. What Jesus said, same thing. Then who has any chance at all, they asked. Jesus was blunt. No chance at all if you think you can pull it off by yourself. Every chance in the world if you let God do it. Peter tried another angle. We left everything and followed you. Jesus said, mark my words, no one who sacrifices house, brothers, sisters, mother, father, children, land, or whatever, because of me and the message, will lose out. They'll get it all back, but multiplied many times in homes, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, and land, but also in troubles. And then the bonus of eternal life. This is once again the great reversal. Many who are first will end up last, and the last shall be first. Once I got that down in my spirit, whenever we would have some kind of a celebration at church on Sundays where everybody would hang out after the service and you'd have a big potluck or something, I used to always try to position myself so I could get to the head of the line. I didn't want to have to wait for 100 people to fill their plates because I was hungry. But I changed my modus operandi. I would hang back. And everybody would be saying, Dwayne, you want to get in line with me? No, I'm okay. You want me to get you a plate? No, I'm okay. And when the last person had filled their plate, I would then go and get my plate, and whatever was left, I would eat it. It was my way of trying to put myself last so that I could be first. I really believe that's what Jesus is talking about in that scripture. And I don't mean just at the church picnic. I mean in a lot of areas of life. So, prioritizing God over possessions. Despite following the rules and even tithing, the rich young ruler struggled to put God first in his heart. His story teaches us that giving is not just about doing the right things, it's about where our heart truly lies. You see, sometimes we do the right thing, but for the wrong motive. And when we do that, we might as well just go ahead and do the wrong thing. Jesus wants us to prioritize Him above everything else, including our possessions. It's essential to recognize that God sees beyond our outward actions. He knows the inner motives of our hearts. Merely going through the motions of religious duties, including tithing, isn't enough if our hearts are not fully surrendered to God. Jesus wants us to have a genuine, wholehearted commitment to Him, where He reigns supreme in our lives. So let's examine our hearts and ensure that our devotion to God goes beyond superficial acts, allowing Him to change our lives from the inside out. Let's pray. Lord, thank You for teaching us through Your Word. Examine our hearts and search for any secret motives that are not pleasing to You. Help us to submit ourselves to Your authority every day. We desire to serve one master, and that is You, Lord. Without faith, we know it's impossible to please You. Strengthen our faith and continue to work in our hearts. It's in Jesus' name we believe and pray. And everybody said, Amen. Amen, and happy Monday. That sounds like an oxymoron, huh? Happy Monday. Mondays don't have to always be brutal, but sometimes it seems like they are. Now, let me share with you the numbers from around the world. I'm going to start here in the U.S. with the cash markets, or the indices as they're called. Currently the Dow is down 8 points. The Nasdaq's up 47. S&P 500 is up 6. The Russell 2000 is up 12. Now, if that sounds like a pretty quiet market, you would be right. In the commodity basket, crude oil up 20 cents, trading 64.78 last. Gold up $4.50, trading 33.51.10 last. Silver up 64 cents, trading 36.78 last. That's a gain of over 1 3/4%. In the Asian markets at the close, the Nikkei posted a gain of 346 points, almost 1%. Shanghai rose 14. The Hang Seng gained 388. That's almost 1 3/4%. And in the European markets at the close, FTSE down 5, the DAX down 130, the CAC down 13. So we had a green day in Asia. It was a red day for the UK. And at the moment, it is a mixed Radio Monday here in the US of A. We got one of the indices in the red. It's the Dow, but it's only down 8 points. Now the other three are in the green, but not by a lot. In fact, the Dow is now down only 1.5 points. So it looks like it's going to join the rest of the crew. As futures traders, we like to see the four major indices all red or all green. It doesn't matter which color, because we can be long, short, and long again all in the same hour if that's what the chart in front of us tells us to do. But when we have mixed markets, then you don't get quite the same follow-through on your trades as you do when they are all the same color. And I got a feeling the Dow is about to slip into the green, so we may have a better afternoon than the morning. Let's go to the news. President Donald Trump has deployed about 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles after protest over immigration arrests turned violent. At least 3 people were reported injured, including 2 sheriff's deputies and a union leader arrested for obstruction. The decision came after roughly 350 to 400 people gathered Friday and Saturday to protest immigration arrests in downtown Los Angeles and nearby Paramount City. Demonstrators clashed with immigration and custom enforcement agents, with some throwing Molotov cocktails and chunks of concrete, burning a car, and defacing a building. Officers released tear gas, pepper spray, and flashbang explosives. ICE reported 118 arrests last week in Los Angeles, including 5 people the agency said were tied to criminal organizations. The president nationalized California's Guard using Title X authority, which placed him at the head of the chain of command. In this case, he bypassed California Governor Gavin Newsom to do so, an approach last taken in the civil rights area. Well, that would be back in the 60s. Excuse me. Okay. Had an assassination attempt in Colombia. Colombian opposition presidential candidate Miguel Uribe Turbay remains in critical condition as of this writing after an assassination attempt Saturday in Bogota. A 15-year-old suspect has been arrested. Officials are searching for potential accomplices. Now, let's face it. This 15-year-old kid probably is no lone wolf. I'm sure the cartel either offered him a big check or took his family hostage and said the only way we let him go is for you to go shoot this guy. The shooting took place at a campaign rally in the Fontalban neighborhood of Colombia's capital. In the middle of his speech, the 39-year-old conservative was reportedly shot 3 times and underwent both head and leg surgery. Uribe has served as a senator since 2022 and has called for a crackdown on crime. Cartels don't like that. Recent polls show him lagging frontrunners in the lead-up to Colombia's May 31st, 2026 elections. Officials have not identified a motive as of this writing. Uribe comes from a prominent political family. His grandfather was a former president there, a liberal politician who served from 78 to 82. His mother was journalist Diana Turbay, who was kidnapped by a group linked to Pablo Escobar, speaking of cartels, and killed in a 1991 rescue attempt. And big news for college students, the ones that behave. A federal judge approved a $2.8 billion agreement by the NCAA to settle 3 separate antitrust cases Friday evening, a long-anticipated decision expected to overhaul the nature of collegiate sports. In addition to compensating current and former athletes, the ruling will allow schools to directly pay athletes up to a capped amount, $20.5 million per school for 2025 through 2026 for the first time. Despite generating more than $1 billion in annual revenue, the NCAA had maintained strict amateurism rules around player compensation dating back to its launch in 1906. A landmark 2021 legal ruling allowed players to earn income based on their name, image, and likeness. This led to largely unregulated booster collectives at the largest schools. The top 15 groups reportedly spent more than $200 million last year. Friday's decision allows schools to vet third-party payments to individual players. So college athletes, I guess, are celebrating. Now, if you're waiting for the next shoe to drop, what would that be? High school athletes? One of my old co-hosts here on this radio program, Mike Reed, I know some of you remember him. He was drafted right out of high school to play baseball for Seattle, professional ball. And the story has a very sad ending. He was drafted out of high school, and he and his friends went out to do what teenagers do, party. They were cliff diving, and Mike broke his back. Spent the rest of his life, he passed a few years ago, but he spent the rest of his life trading. He didn't want to live off the government. He didn't want to live off his parents. It was the only way he could figure out to provide for himself. He had no use of his legs, very limited use of his arms and hands, and would actually hold a stylus or pencil between his teeth and peck at the keyboard. True story. Jesus is my biggest hero. Maybe my wife's second. But I think Mike Reed's third. Tragic story. All right, let's go to Wall Street and see what's cooking. The U.S. and China have restarted trade talks in London today, aiming to ease tensions over rare earths and tech after President Trump and China's leader Xi spoke last week. The purpose of the meeting today is to make sure that they're serious and to literally get handshakes, according to Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economic Council. I expect it to be a short meeting with a big, strong handshake. We'll see. Trump's call with Xi last week with both leaders, which both leaders framed as positive, came after weeks of Trump publicly pushing for a direct call. U.S.-China tensions have risen in the aftermath of the country's trade truce reached in mid-May in Geneva, with both countries accusing the other of breaching that truce while ratcheting up pressure on other issues. Well, let's hope they get the big handshake. Then the question becomes, does it mean anything? Stocks were mixed this morning as investors look to renewed U.S.-China trade talks for signs that either side is willing to dial down tensions and actually reach a tariff deal. The S&P benchmark edged above 6,000 to notch its highest close since February. That was Friday. Yeah, enough of that. From Bloomberg, Senate Republicans intend to propose a revised tax and health care provisions package to President Donald Trump's $3 trillion signature economic package this week, shrugging off condemnations of the legislation by Elon Musk as they rush to enact it before July 4th. The Senate Finance Committee's plan to extract savings from the Medicaid and perhaps Medicare health insurance programs could depart in key respects from the version of the giant bill that narrowly passed the U.S. House in May. The release of the panel's draft will likely touch off a new round of wrangling between fiscal conservatives and moderates. All they're trying to do with Medicare and Medicaid is get people off the rolls that shouldn't be on the rolls. If you're legitimately receiving Medicare and Medicaid, you have nothing to worry about. But if you've finagled some way to get on the payroll, the taxpayer-funded payroll, illegally, I'd be looking at the help wanted ads. We'll see how that goes. When you listen to the other side of the aisle, it's as if they haven't even read the thing. Oh, people are going to die. Well, not if they're receiving their monthly check legally. Nobody's going to die. I'm so sick of hearing that. It's just ridiculous. Amazon said today it will spend $20 billion. That's $20 billion on 2 data center complexes in Pennsylvania, including one it is building alongside a nuclear power plant that has drawn federal scrutiny over an arrangement to essentially plug right into the power plant. Kevin Miller, Vice President of Global Data Centers at Amazon's cloud computing subsidiary, Amazon Web Services. You think Amazon makes most of their money bringing those little packages to your house every day? That is the tip of the iceberg. Most of their revenue comes from their cloud services, Amazon Web Services. One data center is being built next to northeastern Pennsylvania's Susquehanna nuclear power plant. The other will be in Fairless Hills at a logistics campus, the Keystone Trade Center, on what was once a U.S. steel mill. In a statement, Governor Josh Shapiro called it the largest capital investment in Pennsylvania's history. Wow. Is it possible that both sides of the aisle could actually agree on something? That would be big news. Tesla was hit with a pair of downgrades today, underscoring mounting concerns on Wall Street about the electric vehicle maker's outlook following last week's clash between Chief Executive Elon Musk and President Donald Trump. Both Argus Research and Baird cut the stock to the equivalent of hold ratings, cementing Tesla's reputation as the least loved mega-cap stock among analysts. Shares fell 1.6% in pre-market trading, and now they're up 0.10%. I said 0.10%. You know, I was hoping at that mixed martial arts thing happened Saturday night, the one Trump attended, and he was very well received. I was hoping that out of the blue, Elon would just appear right next to Trump. All eyes, all cameras would have been trained on him, and Elon would have reached out his hand for a handshake and put all this claptrap behind us. But I guess it didn't happen. From Reuters, an attorney for BlackRock called antitrust claims by Republican-led states unprecedented, unsound, and unsupported, and said they had failed to show how the firm's involvement with industry climate groups interfered with market competition. Now, when you hear me talk about institutional traders, I'm talking about people like BlackRock. They have trillions of dollars under management. Gibson Dunn attorney Greg Costa spoke as BlackRock and co-defendants Vanguard and State Street, two other huge institutions, seek to dismiss the claims in the closely watched antitrust case brought by Texas and 12 other states. I'm not sure what their problem is, but from Reuters, Americans' anxiety about the future path of inflation eased in May, and heads exploded, as they also grew more upbeat about the state of their personal finances. That all according to a report released today by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The bank reported in its survey of consumer expectations for May that the outlook for inflation across all the horizons it measures retreated. A year from now, survey respondents see inflation at 3.2% versus 3.6% in April, while 3 years from now it's seen at 3% versus 3.2%. 5 years from now, inflation is projected at 2.6% from the prior month's 2.7%. Let's have a telescope. From Bloomberg, platinum extended its surge as the market for the precious metal strains under signs of severe tightness. Spot prices jumped as much as 4.6%, following last week's 10% increase to put it above $1,200 an ounce, the highest level since May of 2021. The implied cost of borrowing the precious metal for 1 month peaked in data going back 6 years, while holdings in platinum-backed exchange-traded funds reached a 10-month high. The bullish signals come as the market heads for another year of deficit. A dramatic outflow of platinum to the U.S. in the first few months of 2025 over fears that imports would be subject to President Donald Trump's tariffs also pushed up the cost of borrowing the metal. Oh, you gotta love it. Well, unless you hate it, then we have differing opinions. And that's okay. Welcome to America. Reuters says that Wall Street's top regulator told the White House in March it had already made substantial progress toward meeting President Trump and Elon Musk's demands for leaner government via voluntary workforce reductions, according to a planning document obtained by Reuters. The SEC also told the Office of Management and Budget that it is legally required to seek input from Congress before any significant reorganization, and that changes beyond certain budget thresholds need lawmakers' approval, according to the March 13th document provided in response to a Reuters public records request. The SEC submission for reduction in force and reorganizations, which Reuters was the first to report, responded to February's call from Trump and erstwhile ally Musk for federal agencies to develop plans for large-scale cuts as part of the Department of Government Efficiency Initiative. And this one's got me a little, and this is the last one. The Children's Place. Have you ever heard of that? I guess maybe we don't have them here in Phoenix, or I'm just not aware of them. It trades under the symbol PLCE. Well, the shares plunged 30% today after the kids' products retailer significantly missed financial forecasts as customers concerned about economic conditions and tariffs pulled back spending. The owner of the Gymboree and Sugar and Jade brands late Friday reported an adjusted first quarter loss of $1.52 per share, 3 times wider than the average estimate of analysts surveyed by Visible Alpha. Revenue fell nearly 10% year over year to $242.1 million, also short of expectations. Now, remember, this is based on customers concerned about economic conditions. The economy is booming. The market is rocketing. Jobs are aplenty. But everybody's worried it won't work. And what do I know? No, maybe it won't. But so far from where I stand, it looks pretty good. All right. S&P 500 Emini futures daily chart. What do we got? Let's see. Friday's high 60.25. Today's high 60.19.75. So we got a little doji, but it's also an inside day. What that means is we have not taken out Friday's high or Friday's low. That's what an inside day means. And that little thing there that looks like a plus mark, that's a doji. So we'll see how we close today. We're pretty close to the top or to the high of the session. So as I said earlier, as the Dow goes green, perhaps, they say when the tide comes in, all boats rise. So keep in mind, if that happens, we got this major resistance over here at this double top, and then at this bearish cross. When the red line gets below the green line and leads to an extended move, the first time price revisits that area is almost always good resistance. Same is true of a bullish cross. Price were to start dropping, we would expect strong support right here, where the blue line got above the green line. Now the green line is called the BBC. It stands for bull bear cross. When price crosses below the green line, we're bearish and expect lower prices. But when price crosses above the green line, we're bullish and expect higher prices. Pretty simple. But here's what's really cool. Price always reverts to the mean. That's just a known thing in the world of trading. Okay? I always tell you there's very few things that are like 100%. But no matter what strategy or methodology you use, price always reverts to the mean. Remember that. It's important. Well, in our case, the mean is green, and we call it the BBC. When price pulls back to the BBC or reverts to the mean, the pullback holds more often than it doesn't. Held here, 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 here. But then finally, and we know that it will finally happen, we trade it through. But then the pullback held, and the pullback held, and now we're just waiting on the next pullback. When we find true resistance, that's what will happen. Price will revert to the mean. And when it does, then it will become a question of, does it hold? Or do we trade through like we did on April 24th and on February 21st? Now, I encourage you, whatever you trade, stocks, futures, crypto, Forex, ETFs, it doesn't matter. Price flows the same across all markets and all time frames. From support to resistance, back to support, back to resistance, over and over again and again. It's a never-ending cycle. It's just how markets work. But I want to encourage you to spend 2 minutes with the daily chart of whatever you trade. before you go to the smaller time frame and start executing. Why? I'm going to tell you. Because the institutions like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and many others, they look at daily, weekly, and monthly charts the way you and I look at 30-minute charts, 5-minute charts, tick charts, and range charts. Why? It has everything to do with account size. You see, they can weather a much deeper drawdown than you or I, and they can stay in a profitable position far longer than you or I might be comfortable with or have the margins to cover. So, what happens is when you spend 2 minutes with the daily chart of whatever you're about to trade, you get a free look over the shoulder of the deep pockets that actually move price. Are they buying? Are they selling? What's going on? And in addition to that free look, you're able to identify where the market is most likely to run into its next major resistance or support. Things you cannot see on the smaller time frames. And I usually go to the good news, the local news, but I forgot again today. Got ahead of myself. Let's have a look. Logic 247, that's our 24/7 around-the-clock E-mini alert service. We're currently in week 358, and over the last 358 weeks, we've issued over 19,800 individual handcrafted alerts. And what we've averaged on a weekly basis is 20% or less of the alerts being stopped out based on simple market structure and a simple process we teach all of our passport holders. Last week we issued, I think, a total of 76 alerts. 8% were stopped out. That's how we closed out the week. Now this week we're off to a little bit of a bumpy start. Valerie did the recap this morning at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. And the markets have been pretty quiet today. Last night, I issued 14 alerts. At the time, the markets opened last night at 6 p.m. Eastern. But we go to work. Stock traders go to work Monday morning, 9:30. But futures traders, well, you don't have to go to work Sunday night at 6 o'clock, but we do. Okay, so anyway, last night I issued 14 alerts. When Valerie did the recap, we were still waiting on the outcome of 8. They gave us 6 actionable alerts, of which 1 or 17% would have been stopped out. Again, based on market structure and that simple process we teach all of our passport holders. So again, we wrapped up last week with 76 alerts issued. Either 74 or 76. And the percentage stopped out was 8%. So, each logic alert has an entry price, an initial target, usually additional targets, and then a final trade to target. The purpose of the alerts, yeah, you can trade them, but the purpose is to help you learn how to read a chart. Whatever career you pursue in life, you got to be able to read the textbooks. But that's easy because, in first grade you learned how to read. But a chart, it doesn't have any words or sentences or paragraphs or punctuation. It's a completely different language. And if you're going to trade for a living, you got to learn to read that language. That's the purpose of the logic alerts, to help you learn how to read the chart. Okay? We're approaching the big 20,000 round number. Never thought that would happen. Never dreamed of it. And we're less than 200 alerts away. So, I beseech ye, my brethren, use the logic alerts to learn to read the chart. Now, a logic alert can come out anytime around the clock, 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Futures trade around the clock. We have traders around the globe. Our day session is their night session, and vice versa. Now, 358 weeks, of course, that's a very long time. But long before we had a Logic 247, we had our original alert service, the concierge trade alerts. And they are different. Different how? Well, I'll show you. Number one, they don't come out around the clock. They're posted as a static report shortly before the Globex open each evening. Except when I'm tied up, and then I put a note in the discussion group that they won't come out 5 minutes before the open. But last night they did. So what this means is that all of our members, and even our trial members, had all of these targets 5 minutes before the market opened. Yes, that's the S&P 500, the Dow, the Russell, crude oil, the NQ, gold, and silver. So as we go through the individual charts, just remember that all of our folks, all of our traders, had these numbers 5 minutes before the open. Now, all alerts, both logic and concierge, are created on the 30-minute chart. The vertical line separates today, Monday. Back here's Friday. Back here's Thursday. And the horizontal lines you see are the weekly trading zones. Now, the weekly trading zones come out Monday morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern for the last 15 years, almost 15 and a half years. Once they're published Monday morning, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change in any way whatsoever. Now, the weekly trading zones you see on my charts today are last week's zones. Why? Because all the logic alerts and all the CTAs issued last night were based on last week's zones. But anything I issue today and the rest of the week will be based on this week's zones, which all of our members got and trial members got this morning at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. When price drops to a weekly zone, we expect support until proven otherwise. When price rallies up to a weekly zone, we expect resistance until proven otherwise. This morning in the live training room, right before we closed, I said, guys, I got a feeling. I said, I think once the London markets close, we may see some movement in the market. And I drew in this window of opportunity live in real time in the live training room. Basically 60.15 up to 60.18. It's 3 points, $150 per contract traded. But look what's happened. This candle opened at 60.13 and a quarter and has ran up 13 points to 60.26. That's 26 points in one 30-minute candle. And as you'll notice, we're getting some pushback right here. Why? Look at Friday's high. We're trying to break through Friday's high. Now, institutional traders, they'll keep buying and they'll keep trying to push it higher. But at some point, they'll cut bait, as it's called. In other words, they'll hit pause on the buy side, because they're not going to throw away money if they can't move the market higher. And remember, they're the ones that move price. So we hit our long target. This was the opening candle last night. Came right down to the BBC. Remember, the pullback holds more often than not. Support sends us to resistance at red and falling. And then we dip below the BBC just a little bit. Then turned to blue and climbing. Got a leg, got a retracement, got a leg, got a retracement. Pullback held. Here, here. And now you can see what happened. And everyone that was in the room this morning, the bill's for you, because I suspect you got some of this. Now, what would bring the short target into play? Well, the short target is based off this low from Friday, okay? Just as the long target was based off this high. So I would want to see price get below this noise we had overnight. And I would trade something like maybe 89 down to 85. That would be 4 points. $200 per contract traded. Now, in order for that to happen, price would have to get through support at the step line, at red and falling. When red and falling gets directly below price and the step line get directly below price, then they become actual support. Then the BBC, then this low. Now this low right here, okay, we had a big red candle. This was the Wall Street open. Now that's a pretty tame open. Look at the size of that candle. They're usually huge. Friday's wasn't, well, it was bigger than today's. About 3 times as big. So we had a red candle coming down. And where did it get to? The bullish cross. We had a bullish cross that led to an extended move the first time price revisited that area. It's good support. Support sends the market looking for resistance, which it found at Friday's high so far. Now this thing could come back down and then run up again. Quite often, these windows of opportunity will fill multiple times. Okay? So, the Dow. Remember, the Dow was the only market in the red when I gave you the numbers from around the world. It wasn't in the red by much. This was Friday's close. Right here, this little candle right there. So we're probably right at Friday's close. Probably says unchanged on the session or something like that. So we did gap a little higher on the open last night, and then we reversed course, came right down to the BBC, consolidated, the pullback held. We got a leg and a retracement, a leg, and then we got a deeper retracement, consolidated at the zone, reached down, touched that target, spiked a little further than I was looking for. I was looking for support right there. Okay, we spiked it, but we hit it. Okay. Now, did you see that? Red and falling just turned to blue and climbing. We're above the BBC. So I think there's a chance that we could see. Now we got this wick here, and this wick here, and this wick here. So I would be patient and let price get up to about 42,910, and then you could trade it right on up to the long target. But this, when this thing turns blue, see, this new candle just started, and it's green. See it? Such a beautiful indication. I mean, look here, when blue and climbing turned to red and falling, what happened? Bang. Now, when price encounters a weekly trading zone, only one of three things happens. 70% of the time, you're going to get this, consolidation. 20% of the time, you'll get this, rejection. 10% of the time, you'll get what's called the slice. That's when price slices through a zone on the 30-minute chart like it's not even there. And when it runs out of steam, it will typically retrace back to the zone it sliced through and then continue in the direction of the slice, just like it did. Now, does that happen 100% of the time? No. It's happened more often than not. Oh, yeah. Don't know who it is, but I'm going to pause. You have my attention. As long as it's not the wife, I usually won't put you on pause. Okay, so this green candle now, it needs to overcome this high right here. And then it needs to overcome this high, which is these highs right here. The market stopped climbing today based on these highs right here from Friday. That's market structure. The Russell. The Russell opened last night well above the BBC, and along with blue and climbing, ran almost all the way to the target. And then back down, pull back to the BBC, the pullback held, and then off we go. We exceeded the target by quite a bit. Now notice how blue and climbing got above price. When it does that, it becomes potential resistance because it's probably about to become red and falling, which is resistance. And notice how on the way up, the step line, the black line, was on the left side of blue and climbing. But once it crosses over, that tells us to expect a retracement back to the BBC. And the market found support right on top of the long target. That happens almost every day on at least a couple of the markets. You trade through one of these targets, and on the retracement, the target actually holds as support. Or if it were going the other way on the pullback, it would behave as resistance. Okay? So, we overcame red and falling. That's bullish. Question is can this little green candle take out this high and take out these highs? Now in tomorrow's broadcast, I'll have this week's zones on the chart. Keep in mind, these are last week's zones. See on Friday how price kept trying to break through that zone? Again and again and again and again and again. And down here, see all that support? Price tried to break below it. Nope, it didn't happen. But that window I drew back middle of last week, early last week, whatever, finally filled. When you find a window of opportunity, it remains valid until triggered. And it didn't get triggered. So this candle right here. Okay, NQ. The NQ, it opened with red and falling overhead. It took us through the BBC, right down to the short target. See that? Now remember, all of our members and all of our trial members had these targets 5 minutes before the market opened. So we consolidated here at the short target. Red and falling, finally turned to blue and climbing. We got a leg and a retracement, a leg and a retracement, a leg and a retracement, and now another leg. So we've hit the long target twice, and we hit the short target at least a couple times. Trade every market exactly the same. Okay, crude oil. This was the open last night. We come down to the BBC, and we dip below it. And I would not have expected support right here, but I don't control price or the markets. Buyers chose to come in there for whatever reason. Maybe there was some news, I don't know. But look what happened. We get back above the BBC. Red and falling turns to blue and climbing, and we go right up to the target, and we exceed it by a penny. 65.11. The target was 65.10. Resistance will always send the market looking for support. Remember, the pullback to the BBC holds more often than not, just like it did here. And that sent us back up to and through the target. And then we got a retracement back to the BBC, and the pullback held. But we had blue and climbing directly overhead, acting as resistance. So price is now trapped between support at the BBC and blue and climbing overhead. If blue and climbing turns to red and falling on the next candle, then I suspect price will come down, and you might enjoy this trade. Selling 64.65 down to 64.55. Goal for the day. Goal. Approaching a window I drew on Friday. It's about to get there. Or maybe I drew that this morning in the room. Either way, we're almost there. And let's see, this is where we opened last night. Popped up to the zone, which we expect to be resistance till proven otherwise. Resistance will always send the market looking for support. We hit the short target, and we hit the zone where we found support. Support sent us back up to the BBC. We traded through the zone, and we put in a high right here at the bottom of this window that I drew on Friday. See that? Right there. Resistance sends us looking for support. This is support times 2. When price pulls back to the BBC, we expect it to hold until proven otherwise. When price pulls back to a zone, pulls down, we expect that to be support till proven otherwise. So we had support times 2. Buyers 1. Red and falling turned to blue and climbing. Now we're almost up to that window I drew today. Now, yeah, it must have been today. It could have been Friday. I don't remember. I had a lot on my mind this morning, trying to do my job and Michael's. But you see the high of this candle right here? I mean, that's jammed right up against the bottom of that window. Now you only need a $1 move in gold. So let's call it 33.60 to 64. You might want to make that 62 to 64. That would be $200 per contract traded. It's not an issue at the moment because we're painting a red candle. And there's 20 minutes left in the life of this candle. So now if this thing turns green and starts to rally, make hay while the sun shines, as they say. I definitely drew this one in this morning. That was in case price started to falter. And last but not least, big silver. Goodness gracious. It's been on a tear for days. A $1 move in the price of silver In other words, $35 to $36. That's worth $5,000 per contract traded. At $37, that'll be another $5,000. Now, I did draw this window this morning, and it filled. I drew it live in the training room this morning. We consolidated. The step line has now officially crossed blue and climbing, so expect a retracement back to the BVC. Then it becomes a question of, will it hold or not? Be patient and find out. If we trade through, if this pullback doesn't hold, make sure you realize you've got some potential support there, there, and then down here, down here, down here. As bullish as silver's been, now this was a perfect 50% retracement last week. This run up. So this is Monday, Friday. This was on Thursday. We ran up, did a 50% retracement, which just so happened to be right at the BVC. And then Friday we went even higher. And today we went even higher. So markets don't grow to the sky. At some point, we're going to get a decent retracement. And as for me and my house, we will buy the dip. As for you and your house, well, that's up to you. Seriously. You're probably wondering, well, if you traded that window on the way up, can you trade it on the way back down? Well, you could. But on a 30-minute chart, that would be a counter trend trade. I mentioned that in the Logic 247 channel, there's over 19,800 alerts. Every one of those is a trend trade based on the 30-minute chart and the 30-minute BBC. Price, the 30-minute BBC. If price is below the BBC on the 30-minute chart, I only put out short logic alerts. If price is above the 30-minute BBC, I only put out long alerts. So if I were doing trend trades and counter trend trades, we'd probably have twice as many trades. But here's what I've learned over the years. A trade that honors the 30-minute chart trend has a greater probability of reaching its goal than a counter trend trade. So ultimately, it's up to you to decide. It's your trading business. One last look at the daily. The high 60.26 half. Friday was 60.25. We've officially now, it's no longer an inside day. We've taken out Friday's high by 1.5 points. 60.25 on Friday. So far 60.26.5. And that just happened on this 30-minute candle right here. Now we got a little doji there. But we have turned back to blue and climbing. So if price comes back down through the window, be prepared to trade it long back up through the window. The market loves to repeat itself. Okay? All right. If you're ready to become a member, go to mytradingiq.com, watch the videos, read the content, and then send an email to support@cfrn.net. In the email, just tell us, hey, I want to become a member. Okay? Valerie will send you an email that explains everything it means to become a passport holder. She'll also include a link that you can click to seal the deal. Number one, you're going to get 2 hours of live interactive trading, live markets, real trades with real money, an explanation of every trade, and an answer to every question that pops into your head as you trade along in your demo account to qualify to go live. 9 out of 10 new traders fail simply because they don't have anyone to teach them how to do the job. Imagine trying to be a pilot without someone to teach you how to fly, or a brain surgeon, or a banker, even a house painter. I mean, you want somebody that's been doing it for a while, knows what they're doing, they've already made all the mistakes, and they can save you so much time and treasure because you don't have to make those same mistakes if you have a good teacher. And we have a good teacher when he's not on vacation. And he'll be back tomorrow morning, 3 minutes ahead of the open, along with 2 hours of live interactive training every trading day. You also get private one-on-one mentoring. The strategy you learn, the indicators you own as a passport holder, are fluid across all markets and all time frames. Doesn't matter, stocks, futures, crypto, Forex, ETFs. As I said before, price flows the same across all markets and all time frames. From support to resistance, back to support, back to resistance, over and over again and again. It's a never-ending cycle. It's simply how markets work. As a passport holder, you're going to get the Logic 247 alerts around the clock. You'll get the concierge trade alerts the second they're published every evening. Monday mornings at 6:15 a.m. Eastern, you'll get this week's weekly trading zones. And once they're published, they're carved in stone for the entire week. They don't change. You'll receive an invitation every Thursday afternoon to attend the members-only workshop at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you'll get the golden key that opens all the private channels in Telegram. We have public channels, we have private channels. But again, when you become a passport holder, you have access to everything. Everything a trader needs, all under one roof, at one low price. Just send us an email, support@cfrn.net. Let's wrap it up with our good word for the day. Connect, commit, communicate. Romans 16:2. She has been helpful to many and especially to me. When it comes to life's great achievers, the Apostle Paul is in a league of his own. But he takes one entire chapter of the Bible, Romans 16, to acknowledge all the people who helped him to succeed in his calling. The chapter could be captioned, "I couldn't have done it without you." He starts by talking about Phoebe, who is worthy of honor, for she has been helpful to many and especially to me. Romans 16:2. President Lyndon Johnson said, "There are no problems we cannot solve together, and very few that we can solve by ourselves." See, I wish Congress would get the memo. We're all on the same team. We're supposed to be. When God created Adam, he said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I'll make him a helper." Genesis 2:18. And he created Eve. From the beginning of time, God teaches us that very little of significance is ever accomplished by an individual acting alone. Look below the surface, and you will invariably find that all the single-handed feats are rarely team efforts. Australian pioneer of the aviation industry, Charles Kingford Smith, with his co-pilot, Charles Ohm, achieved a series of aviation firsts. Australian doctors Ken and Jocelyn Elliott were a formidable team working in Burkina Faso. Even German-born physicist Albert Einstein acknowledged this. Many times a day I realize how much of my own outer and inner life is built upon the labors of my fellow men, both living and dead, and how earnestly I must exert myself in order to give in return as much as I have received. The secret to success in any endeavor can be summed up in these 3 words: connect, commit, communicate. And that's our good word for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy and with His grace. And I'll see you at the bell.
Remember this, there is no greater return on investment than to see a human life changed and given hope. As always, pray hard and trade safe. Any financial information discussed on this show is simply the opinion of our host, Dwayne Reeves, his co-hosts, and guests. To learn more about trading E-mini futures or to take a 1-week free trial in our live trading room, call 1-866-928-3310. 866-928-3310. Information discussed on this radio program should not be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any security. Always do your own due diligence and consult with a licensed securities broker or financial planner before making any investment decision.